You are listening to the Adult Sabbath School lessons for the third quarter of 2022. This is lesson number 10 of the Adult Sabbath School Bible Study Guide in the Crucible with Christ. The lesson is titled Meekness in the Crucible and is ready for teaching on September 3. The author is Pastor Gavin Anthony, who was conference president in Iceland when he wrote this series of lessons. Today, your lesson is read by Dr. Percy Harrold. Wednesday, August 31. A closed mouth. The most powerful examples of meekness in the crucible come from Jesus. When he said to come and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, in Matthew 11:29, he meant it in ways we probably can't imagine. Read 1 Peter chapter 2, verses 18 to 25. Peter is offering some surprising advice to slaves. He describes how Jesus responded to unjust and painful treatment and suggests to them that he has left them an example that you should follow his steps in verse 21. What principles of meekness and humility in the crucible can we learn from Jesus' example as expressed here by Peter? 1 Peter chapter 2, beginning at verse 18, Servants, be submissive to your masters with all fear, not only to the good and gentle, but also to the harsh. For this is commendable, if because of conscience toward God one endures grief, suffering wrongfully. For what credit is it if, when you are beaten for your faults, you take it patiently? But when you do good and suffer, if you take it patiently, this is commendable before God. For to this you were called, because Christ also suffered for us, leaving us an example that you should follow his steps, who committed no sin, nor was deceit found in his mouth, who, when he was reviled, did not revile in return, when he suffered he did not threaten, but committed himself to him who judges righteously, who himself bore our sins in his own body on the tree, that we, having died to sins, might live for righteousness, by whose stripes you were healed. For you were like sheep going astray, but have now returned to the shepherd and overseer of your souls. It is terrible to watch someone else treat another unjustly, and it is extremely painful when we are on the receiving end of such treatment. Because we normally have a strong sense of justice, when injustice occurs, our instincts are to put things right, while holding on to what we believe to be a righteous and just anger. It's not easy to live meekly. It is perhaps impossible unless we embrace one critical truth, that in all unjust situations we must believe that our Father in heaven is in control, and that he will act on our behalf when it is according to his will. This also means that we must be open to the possibility that, like Jesus, we may not always be saved from injustice. But we must always remember that our Father in heaven is still with us and in charge. Peter's advice, modelled on Jesus' life, is surprising because it seems that silence in the face of unjust suffering is a greater witness to the glory of God than putting people right. When questioned by Caiaphas and Pilate, Jesus could have said a lot of things to correct the situation and to justify himself, but he didn't. His silence was a testimony to his meekness. And so to finish the day, how do you deal with situations in which you have been treated unfairly? How can you better apply some of the principles looked at here today to your own life? This lesson was read by Dr. Percy Harrold for Christian Services for the Blind. Sponsored by the Sabbath School Department and distributed through Hope Channel Australia, this podcast is also redistributed by Hope Channel Germany, Christian Record Services for the Blind. It is also available on SoundCloud and through multiple podcast distributors, including Apple iTunes. And you can listen and watch at the same time on YouTube. Remember, God is always faithful.